The human mind is one of the most untapped resources for athletes and everyday people. Training it can enhance your athletic performance, mental well-being, effectiveness at work and in relationships. It's the bedrock of self-awareness. Whether you're an athlete, an amateur musician, or simply interested in training the mind, this episode will benefit you. My guest today is Kunashni Parikh. She's a clinical psychologist, sports psychologist, behavioural neuroscience research scholar from the University of British Columbia, UBC. Kunashni was also vice-captain and goalkeeper to India under-17s football and Vancouver United Football Club. Today, we discuss how meditation can improve sports performance, why you should train the mind, just how Kunashni holds a plank for 30 minutes, how to develop an effective pre-performance routine, how you can incorporate visualization into your plan, how to clear psychological blocks which will be affecting your game, why mirror neurons can help you perform better, the common misconceptions of sports psychology, how to minimize the post-Hyrox dopamine dip, how you can use meditation for motivation, and Kunashni's 4 protocols for improved performance. Please enjoy my conversation with Kunashni Parikh. Kunashni, tell me, what is the role of a sports psychologist?
So a sports psychologist, also often referred to as a mental coach or a performance coach, helps athletes to improve their performance by training their mind. So as you know, in sports and especially competitive sports, there's a lot of high pressure in the competitive environments. And just to help athletes sail through that, keep their confidence high, their motivation going, and just to get into a state of flow. That's where sports psychology and sports psychologists come in and can help them.
And are there any misconceptions about what a sports psychologist does?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a lot of the time, people think of going to a sports psychologist only if there's something really wrong with you or you're struggling with some kind of serious mental problem or mental health issue. But that's not the case. It's just there for everybody to use as performance tools to enhance their game. So people think that, okay, if I go to sports psychologist, there's something wrong with me and I need help. And there's that stigma against that. And they may not want to seek those services. This kind of happens all across. But if you just see it from like a mental strength training aspect or something that's there to enhance your game, just like going to the gym helps you work on your physical body, right? Going to a mental gym or mental training helps you work on your mental fitness. So that's one kind of myth. Another myth is like you don't really need it if you're not pro or an elite athlete. And that's not true. Anyone can use sports psychology and their tools, even at the grassroots level, even if you're just, an amateur athlete or playing recreationally, these things can really help you.
Yeah, it's a little bit like I talk at the moment quite a lot about therapy. So I'm like in therapy at the moment, and there is still stigma attached with that. Certainly I imagine in your culture and also in British culture, maybe a little bit different in the US, but yeah, it doesn't mean that you are broken if you're wanting to improve yourself. Is it? Like you say, it's just like the gym, and yeah, I'm a big believer, and that's why I'm so interested in I'm interested in psychology and also performance in sport as well, because I've picked up certain little cues and stuff that I've used in whether it be in training or whether it be during competition or whatever. But yeah, I'm interested to get into what it is that you do and the sort of frameworks that you use so that I can selfishly broaden my own palette of tools. How did you first come interested in the field?
So I've been an athlete myself. I played football, also known as soccer, at the international level. So I was the goalkeeper and the vice captain of the junior India football team. And I played it for many years and I really loved it. I loved being in that position of a goalkeeper, diving, saving the ball, just to give me a high. apart from that, I've played more sports than I can count and remember. I played gymnastics at the state level. I was a black belt in karate. So sports has just always been a very vital part of my life, and I've always had a lot of fun around it. And my second passion and interest was psychology, the mind, behavior, how we think and perform. So when I started studying it, um, academically at the higher levels, and I realized there's this overlap, and I also realized there's this need, because when I was an athlete and playing, I knew I had confidence issues and problems and things that stopped me from playing my best on certain days. And I didn't know that such a thing existed, but now I do. So being able to give that kind of support to athletes right now and helping them get that, something that I know is vital and essential to performance, that's what really got me into it, and then I just stuck around.
Wow. So are you still doing any like sports competition these days, or have you sort of like retired from that?
But yes, I do play more so recreationally now because my work takes most of my time. But whenever I get a chance, I love to go and kick around the ball. It was just a couple of years ago that I played the senior nationals, but after that, more so my work has taken over. So I just try to stay fit with other things, um, usually just like home workouts and plank. At this point of time, I can hold a plank for up to 30 minutes. So I think my fitness is
30
more,
minutes.
yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Thank you, thank you. Slowly, slowly got my way
12
up.
minutes. 30 minutes, sorry. I was looking at the time down there. We've been running for 12 minutes. Um, yeah, sorry, the caffeine's not completely in my system yet this morning. We're a little bit earlier than normal. 30 minutes. Wow. Okay. Right. I'm going to have to dig into this with you. Let's talk about this plank.
Yeah.
So, all right. So tell me, like, what are the mental cues? Like, what's getting you through? Because, like, when did you start training for this? Like, did you start like a few years ago and you had like 5 minutes in you? And like, how did you increase that other than the training and.
I think it's something that I've been doing for a while. Like it's such a common exercise in an athlete's or non-athlete's life. So I've been doing plank for a while, 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But I think a year ago I took on the challenge to like try something more, and I think over the span of a year I gradually built it, and in a couple of months it like uh, exponentially kind of went up. The key, I would say, I think a lot of mental, what's the word, like stillness, like just
Mhm.
kind of the more your mind is unsteady, the quicker you'll want to get out of that uncomfortable position. So I saw a correlation between how calm I can keep myself throughout the day or throughout my work and things like that, and how much I exceeded in this. So it had a lot to do with like the mental aspect of just getting through.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It makes me think about breathing. So, if I imagine myself now going through a plank and doing it for as long as I can, I've got I feel like there are like two options that I can go down. Like one is kind of like everything tight, big breaths would probably be my default. But I have noticed recently sometimes when I kind of just let go of that, and obviously not let go of your form, but like when I kind of let go of like the intense breathing and where I'm kind of just like I really try and bring my nervous system into a relaxed state, I feel like that's the better route. Would you say?
Definitely, definitely. And I think along with breathing, a lot of meditation kind of helps you get to that state where you can just let go of what you know you want to let go and keep your mind where you know you want to keep your mind at.
Mm, 30 minutes. I don't even know my plank. I can probably do like 90 seconds maybe. My coach, he hasn't done this for a while. I hope he doesn't listen and program it for me. But he he used to give me this one where I was running. I can't remember the distance, but basically I'd be like sprinting for 600 meters, maybe not sprinting, but fast run, and then hold the plank for 60 seconds, and then run back, and then hold the plank for 60. And I think there was 10 rounds of that. And it's an interesting thing about training, though, as well. Those difficult sessions are also what build confidence, I find. Like, I sometimes, and obviously we'll sort of maybe go into like mental cues and stuff, but when I would be doing a high rocks, competing in high rocks, and if I start to like feel myself like slipping a bit, I'll play like a Rocky tape in my head, and I'll think back to me doing those planks and those sprints in the pouring rain, in the dark, and it's like, oh yeah, I was that guy. And that was really helpful for me. Conversely, when I did I did High Rocks Pro in March of this year, and my training hadn't been great. And I was kind of in this like in between phase, and I'd not been like full on going after it as much. And even though I was probably fitter than I was before, in fact, I definitely was, something was there in my head, because like I was trying to play the Rocky tape, but because I knew I hadn't put as much work in, that confidence wasn't there.
I know what you're saying, and that's very interesting. And I do feel like such experiences and like this intense amount of workout and training and adversity, if you can say in a sense, kind of makes me feel like I can handle anything. So it's a great confidence boost. Yeah, and that comes to then it makes you ask the question, right? Like, how much do you push yourself? Because I'm sure your coach at that time really pushed you to do that. And now a very common question in coaching is like, uh, how much do you push and how much do you let the athlete choose how far they want to go, right? What's the best coaching style?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, then that's a really good point as well, because sometimes like he'll program something in. Shout out to Matty Green, by the way. He'll program something in for me, and I'll think, how does he know I can do that? And I think this is probably what they're playing with, isn't it? It's because if I was programming my own training, there's no way I'd think, oh, well, I know I can maybe do 45 seconds. And then, if he turns around and say, did something the other day, I think it was like a glute bridge hold, something I don't do much of, and it was like 3 minutes. I was like, 3 minutes? And whereas I might have thought maybe 60 seconds, 2 minutes, and I got to the 2 minutes, and I was like, and I did it. That's what a coach does, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like they know exactly how much to push you. A good coach would. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you remember like a time when you were an athlete in which you really became acutely aware of the need for sports psychology? Like, do you have like a moment like that, or?
Yeah, I actually do. I remember it was in Vancouver and I was playing for the Vancouver United FC. And I was the goalkeeper at that time. It was one of the metro leagues going on. And I was in the goal. I know it was like a little before halftime and we were one goal down. And it was like, it was pouring rain. It was like not that good weather. And we were playing a much tougher opponent. Though I know that we had the skills to beat them if we just all played together. And at that time, I remember that because of one silly mistake, we conceded a goal and we had to get ourselves back to a good position. And all I was thinking in my mind is like, okay, what's going to happen next? Are we going to win? Is it going to be okay? Is there going to be a really strong attack? How are we going to handle this? Am I going to be able to, make the next save? And while that was like cognition that was happening, all these thoughts, there was like this metacognition happening at that time, which was like, if you just had the confidence right now, then you wouldn't be focusing on all these things and you would just be focusing on what you need to focus on, like the goal and the ball. And I'm like, yeah, I wish I had that, but I don't have that at this very moment in this particular match. Maybe in other matches, but not specifically at that time. And I think that was like my moment of realizing, like, um, if there was just something that helped me turn the switch, I know my performance would be very different right now. Like, I know it.
Mm.
So that was
How
like
how old
really,
were you then?
maybe I was around 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 20 or 21 when I was playing at that time. Mm.
And do you know, like as you're talking, then I was thinking it makes sense actually, given your background. That well, there's a bit of a. Some people say you need to be crazy to be a goalkeeper, right? But also, as a goalkeeper, you kind of like. I've never liked playing in goals, mainly because I never liked the ball coming towards me. I always liked it going that way. That's another issue. But but like yeah, I suppose you have like a bit more time. It's probably a bit more of a lonely position. Certainly, if your team's right up the pitch, and I'm not taking away anything from what a goalkeeper does. I imagine there's much more of shouting, organising, especially as you're a vice captain, right? But I imagine there's a lot more time to be in that headspace of doubt and fear and the things that come in, right?
I'm not sure about the time because you're constantly engaged on where the
Mm,
ball is and the fact that it could come anytime. So if you're as engaged, I would say, as any other player because there are 11 players and not everybody has the ball at the same time. So even if
mm-hmm.
the ball is up there, the defenders have the same amount of time to mind wander as I would. And
Yes.
I think I would have less time because that's what I've been told by my coaches that as the goalkeeper, you have to always, like you said, guide the defense, guide everyone because you can see the
Mm,
entire game from the back.
stay
So I had
switched
less
on.
time. Yeah, yeah. And so this was very interesting. One of my very first coaches, he said that, you can make like really great saves and 9 out of 10 times like you're paying attention, but that one time you're not paying attention, an attack can come. You won't even know how fast the ball is in your D and it's going to go in the goal. So 9 out of 10 attention is not good enough. Because if anybody else makes a mistake, it's okay. But the goalie making a mistake, it's the most obvious mistake in the match, right?
Mm, yeah, for sure. And now it like as soon as I verbalize that, I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, as a professional goalkeeper and defender, you're always on like reading the game. But I suppose what we could pick up from that is if you want to be a really good goalkeeper, you've got to be on it
Yeah.
because if you're not, how many times have we seen the defender at the back switched off the goalkeepers, and like you say,
Yeah.
you can be making all these like crazy saves in athletic, but if you switch off, then yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure. What
Definitely.
talk to me about like your day-to-day work, like what you're doing these days. Are you working with athletes? Are you coaching? What?
For sure. So I work mainly as a psychologist. I've also trained as a clinical psychologist. So all the serious issues like major depression, anxiety, all those kinds of things, I work with those cases as well. And I also work as a sports psychologist with athletes, professional athletes, and semi-professional athletes, right from amateurs to those preparing for the Olympics. And I help them in their routines and their day to day to get the right mental skills to perform. So, what my day looks like, it's a lot of sessions, individual sessions with athletes and individuals to help them achieve their mental strength goals. It's quite a few group sessions as well with teams, academies, organizations. Some of my work also involves consulting for different organizations who want to introduce different mental health curriculum, for example, into schools or non for profit organizations working for mental health. A couple of months ago, I worked for an app that was helping people get off addiction and recovery and
Wow.
also deal with their stress. And this app had like a worldwide reach of like, I think more than 2 million downloads and working with like a team from like all across the world in this particular aspect to help people just feel more comfortable in their skin, be able to not rely on any external source of,
Stimuli.
comfort, validation, all that stuff. Yeah. So we designed like activities, digital programs, just things to keep them hooked and going on. And it's really inspirational stuff because I remember we had like a particular space over there, a community space where people could come and share their experiences. And when they just like write about how they're doing and how this their day-to-day goals and like from day 1 to day 99, and you're like, oh my god, like people are actually engaging with this stuff and like making changes, and they're talking about their aunts and their children and then changes they've seen and the things that are going on. So, and it's really rewarding and worthwhile, um, the kind of work I feel I do, and I really enjoy it. So my day to day is very different, and I like to keep it that way. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So, can you talk about the app? What it's called? Or
Yeah, so this app is called Reframe. I'm not
reframe?
working with them at this point of time, but it's really great for those who are trying to recover from any kind of um, stress. They also have
Mm,
a app for stress, or
mm.
they also have it for alcohol and different kinds of health issues. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've not seen many apps for um like addiction and substance like specifically. One of the things I wanted to ask you, so clinical means like humans, right? Is that correct?
So clinical is stuff that's more towards the medical side. So kind of
Ah,
mental health issues which have been medicalized, which have a standard diagnosis, like depression, generalized anxiety, schizophrenia, PTSD. All that falls in the clinical stuff, and just
oh,
performance anxiety or stress or things that commonly we would face without it having to be a diagnosis would be everything else.
right.
Not
I see. So clinical is like kind of, yeah, it's like put into a box of this has been,
medical.
yeah,
Yeah.
medical. Right. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. So like when you're dealing with, say, athletes, are there like a few common sort of things that you come across that you have to help them with?
Yeah, a lot of the common issues stem about their performance. So one common thing is, I'm really good in training, in practice, I do really well, but when it comes to the competition, I just can't perform. So it's these
Mm,
kind of mental blocks and performance pressures that are the most common. And then sometimes it's a lot about motivation over time. If you have inconsistent performance, how to get that consistency in, how to stay motivated. These are some common issues. People struggling getting back from injuries. So psycho rehabilitation, like just like your physical rehab, like what are you doing for your mind so that when you get back, you're not faced with all those fears of, oh, I don't know if I'll make it. I don't know if I'll
mm.
be able to get back to the level where I was, all that self-doubt, things like that.
Yeah. I suppose as well for like, if you're an athlete, you've probably been doing sports all of your life. And for most people imagine that they've never come across meditation or mindfulness. Um, Certainly, I would think in my culture, and it's like I see. I've probably come at this like the opposite way around. So I did meditation and stuff in my 20s, and then I really started getting into um performance and stuff. So it was quite easy to like tag those things on and having awareness of some of the mental stuff. But I suppose like yeah, if you're kind of used to performing all the time and um I imagine it's maybe more common that like being comfortable like in your own thoughts and being your own mind is something that high performing or certainly people with that natural ability to just be going all the time,
Yeah,
that must be like a big challenge. Like
yeah,
one of the sort of threads at the moment with the podcast is I talk a lot about like masculinity and vulnerability, and you've got like these two things going on. And someone said to me, I was on someone else's podcast recently, and they wanted me to like talk about how I'd managed to like have this balance. And I was like, well, I'm very flattered, but I don't think I found it. But and I said it was easy for me because I came in it from like I've always been kind of like vulnerable, sensitive, or whatever. And then for me, it was like, okay, just train more, do more masculine stuff. Whereas if I came at it from the other angle and I was like, just like this hard raging guy who's in the gym, starting there and then becoming like more emotionally aware and stuff like that, I imagine that's a completely different route to go down. So yeah, endlessly
Yeah.
fascinated with all this stuff. So what are the sort of like techniques that we use, sort of like frameworks, or any that you can sort of like give us here today?
For sure. I think there would be four major frameworks that I could suggest for athletes to get hold of their performance from the mental side. Number one would be visualization. It's one of the most powerful techniques in sports psychology. It's very famous. It's also known as mental imagery. It's not the one where you do just as you're performing or just before you perform, where you just think of how you want your skill to go. It's something that requires a little more practice and dedication and time. So something that you do off the field regularly for a consistent amount of time, where you see your performance the way you want it to do, the way you want to do it. You visualize all the skills, the muscle movements, you feel everything. You see yourself scoring the goal, hitting the ball at the bat, swinging the racket, the sweat coming down your skin. You make it very real and you see yourself winning. So it's about skill development, it's about motivation, positivity, it's all these things. And what this really does is it activates the motor neurons in our brain, the motor neurons, and also a type of cell called the mirror neurons. And the fascinating thing about our brain that researchers have found is that when you actually perform something, a skill, and you just think of performing that skill, like you just rehearse it mentally, the same pattern of neurons fire in your brain. So your brain can't tell the difference if you're actually performing it or if you're just visualizing it. That's why the more times you visualize, your brain feels like you're actually practicing it more and more and you get better at it. So that's the power of visualization that a lot of elite athletes use. Now, I would strongly suggest people to learn about it and use it, not just for elite sport or competitive sport, even for any kind of skill you want to master, right? Like even for high rocks, for example, like see yourself going through that entire set from 1 kilometer to the next, and every movement, and it just kind of becomes natural when you actually perform because you've just seen it so many times.
Would you like to know one of my visualization tactics? So um, I started doing it, and this is quite good actually. If someone's not very, if they don't have a meditation practice, maybe. Do you guys sauna? Do you do sauna out in India? Yeah. So I started doing it in the sauna because it's kind of like time for like meditation, and sometimes you sat there. Obviously, there's not much to do. And I found the sauna was really good because, of course, it's painful as well. So, um, at the end of High Rocks, you have to do 100 wall balls, and it's like it's a real mental game. And I was like, I would do my whole race, sat there in the sauna, and then at the end, I'm picturing myself doing the wall balls, but as the heat's rising as well, it feels painful, so it's kind of I do think that really helped. I know you said two things, by the way, so you've got two more
Yeah.
to go, but I couldn't help just interject. What's going on with those mirror neurons as well? Like, just tell me a little bit more. What is a mirror neuron?
So a mirror neuron is basically any kind of neuron that fires in response to an activity that you see or visualize that is outside you. So if we go a little bit into the history, the way they were discovered is like these bunch of scientists were kind of working with macaw monkeys, and they actually just went out to get some lunch, and they were just testing the different motor neurons. So they knew that if a neuron is connected to the motor system, it should activate when the motor system is active. So if the monkey moves their hand and reaches for something, that neuron's going to fire, right? So they were just taking a break during their experiments. They went out quickly, got some lunch, and sat back down, and they started eating, but they did it in front of the monkey. So when they did that, they saw that as the monkey was observing them, the same motor neurons started firing, even without the monkey moving their muscles at all. And it happened every time the researchers picked up the food or made a motion of eating it. And that kind of was like a great insight for them. And they did a lot of experiments with that. And they saw that anytime you see an action or you recognize a certain action, the same neurons that you would use to perform that action fire. And that's how the concept of visualization came in. So it's also connected to empathy. When the better you're able to empathize, right, you can see that perspective, you're able to fire that same reaction or system inside you, and you can empathize better. So when you visualize, you see it, you're activating those motor neurons without actually moving your body. And it's just called a mirror neuron because it's mirroring a certain behavior. So it's not a different type of cell. It's just the same cell that already exists. It just fires in response to visualized activity mentally or activity that is seen externally, as if you were doing it yourself.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's like if sometimes like if I've maybe done like if I've filmed myself, which I do quite often, I film myself doing like a heavy 1 RM squat or something, and then I'll be sat on the sofa in the evening and I'm on my Instagram and I watch it back, and then I'll start like my nervous system will start ramping up. It's like, yeah, this like empathy response to me doing the thing, because I knew like it's like
Yeah. No,
so
definitely.
interesting. So
Yeah.
you said there was 4 and we covered 2. So
One was visualization. The second one I would say definitely is meditation. This is applicable to all kinds of performances or activities in life, and it really helps elite athletes. The more you're able to steady your mind through meditation and take control of your thoughts, the better you're able to stay focused in your performance, keep away distractions, and it also helps you stop overthinking about the result and what's going to happen at the end. Am I going to make the shot? Am I not? Am I going to win or not? So it helps you stay present and just focus on that ball or that moment. So meditation helps for sure. That was the second
would
one.
that be like focused attention, vipassana, traditional mindfulness meditation?
Yes.
Like, because yeah, focusing on your breath is the same as focusing on the skill, right? Rather than the outside.
Correct. So when you practice focusing on your breath, you develop that internal ability to sustain your attention at will. And so when you're out there with the ball, you're exercising your ability to sustain your attention on a particular target, which is the ball.
What would you say to like someone, because this is a common one I get, well, no, the sport is my meditation, or running is my meditation, I don't need to do meditation because I already do that. What would you say to that?
I would say it's really great if you feel that way. And what they're trying to say is that's something that makes them feel good. It makes them feel calm, grounded, happy, and that's great. If you have something that makes you feel that way, it's really good. But the point of meditation as an exercise of its own is an exercise of concentration and sustained attention. And while you're playing that sport, and that gives you a lot of benefits of meditation, such as pleasure, being in the moment, enjoying your activity, it doesn't necessarily help you practice concentration, because in that environment, if you introduce triggers, pressure, stress, someone saying, okay, you're going to play this, but there's a lot of these distracting thoughts coming in, or the opponent is changing their strategy. And you're like, wait, I love my sport, but I don't know how to handle all these triggers and these distractions and this external pressure that is suddenly built. So for that, you need meditation, sustained attention to keep away your distracting thoughts and other things, to help you in your practice of your sport, to enjoy it better, to perform better, and to help you in your meditation, if that's your meditation. Yeah. So you can call it anything, but practice of sustained attention and concentration will help you excel in any performance you want.
Yeah. Do you know, it reminds me a few years ago, I became like more aware of I would say like my hormone balance, like paying attention to like how I'm feeling, like do I feel like I've got testosterone? I started noticing stuff like this, and I went down this journey of kind of like trying to optimize for that kind of stuff. And prior to this, I was very kind of yoga, meditation, gratitude. I was very calm, and all the rest of it. But like what I was lacking was like that fire. And then so I went through like a period of trying to like, how can I ignite the fire, but like not go into this like stress mode. And for quite a while, actually, I started to worry that meditation was reducing my edge, or like, or if I meditate, I must be dumbing down my testosterone levels. I don't believe that now, by the way. But what would you say to that kind of fear? Like, well, if I meditate, I don't want to lose my edge.
Okay. I haven't heard that a lot, but there are cases where people become too calm for their own good. And I think that ties more into a concept of the optimal level of arousal. Before every performance, there's an optimal state that you should be in, a physiological state, which is called your state of arousal. And if it's too high, you're going to be overcharged, over energized, too anxious, just, all over the place. If it's too low, you could be quite dull. Your mind can go blank. You're not really present in the moment. You're like, wait, what? The game started. And you can kind of freeze. And you need an optimal level of arousal, of psychological and physiological activation to be present. So what could happen in that case? A certain kind of meditative practice, which helps you become calm, but doesn't necessarily help you become conscious and aware, can lead you to that low level of arousal state, where your physiological activation has gone down, but psychologically you're not still very alert or ready to take action when required. So it depends on the type of meditative practice you're doing and how it's shifting your physiological state. I can
Yeah,
talk a little bit about. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. No, it totally makes sense. It's all. I suppose it's that self-awareness, isn't it? And to become more self-aware, you probably need to do more meditation. But like noticing the patterns in your own body, knowing what you need at the time, and you see, at the moment, after I meditate in the morning, I have like a few reflections that I run through. I've actually got it on like it's like a split timer on my phone for working out, but I use it for just mental prompts for. So one of them is so for a long time I would use like a negative visualization. I'm going to bring this home, by the way. It'll come back to what we were saying. So the cue would be, think about how you'll feel if you stop publishing podcast episodes, and I sit in that pain of like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So then I'm like, right, get upstairs, start editing, messaging guests, whatever. But then recently, I noticed it wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I switched it. So I switched it to the other way around, which was imagine how you're going to feel once you've done 50 episodes, which is like a positive one. Um, it just made me think about that. It's like, I suppose it's like that activation energy, and like, which direction do you need to go? As you're sitting in that, if you're meditating, then afterwards, like, paying attention to which way you want your sort of nervous system to be pushed. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. And as you were saying that, I kind of thought of like the prefrontal cortex, which you might have heard of, which is the
Mm.
front part of our brain that is responsible for a lot of logical thinking and higher order thinking. And meditation does enhance that and enhance our ability to have better executive thinking and rational decision making and things like that. And when you have to tie the action to a particular outcome, let's do this because I can visualize a certain outcome, a positive result that I want for myself. But sometimes it becomes difficult to link the action to that outcome. And you'd be like, yeah, but how is this going to link to that? And when you meditate, you build awareness of that, self awareness of that, or goal awareness, and strengthen the rational patterns which help you link these two activities. So it automatically gets to work and it becomes autonomous. Like you do the activity because it's so clear how this is going to help you reach that goal that you have for yourself. That's how I think I would see it.
Mm. Yeah, are you saying like it's almost like a drip feeding a bit of that feeling that you're going to be doing during the activity to get you motivated? I don't know if I've understood that correctly.
Yeah, kind of like meditation, just bringing that clarity in of, why a certain action will or will not help you achieve a certain goal, right? Because sometimes you fail to make the link as to why doing these kind of actions and steps will create a certain result or outcome.
Yeah. I suppose that leads into motivation. Sorry, are we still on three, by the way? Have we got one more? I keep jumping in.
So we had visualization, we had meditation, and yeah, I could say there's one more. I
Hmm.
initially said four, but I could just say both together. So
Hmm.
the third one is journaling. And
Mm.
journaling is a very broad term and it could mean a lot of things. And there are different types, such as journaling just for gratitude to get into a positive space, or like a post performance analysis of how my workout was or training was, which builds clarity. But the kind of one I want to focus on is emotional journaling, how you feel about a certain performance in the past, so that you can just recover from that setback quickly by addressing that pain, and how you feel about a certain event that is going to happen in the future. So you can address that anxiety head on before you're faced with that event. And a lot of the athletes I work with, we practice emotional journaling for situations they faced in the past so that they stop avoiding it, can get through that pain, and take away all the technical aspects they need to learn from it. And journaling for the future. How do you feel about your upcoming tournament? Because if you don't address it and leave the anxiety unaddressed, because it does exist somewhere, either little or a lot. And if you don't address how you're feeling about something, the time of when you're performing is going to creep up on you. And you wouldn't have processed what tools you have to handle how you feel about it.
Mm. Yeah. A colleague of mine had a driving test recently, and she's quite a bit younger than me, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm worried about this, and there's going to be traffic."
Yeah.
And I said to her, I said, "Have you ever done any visualization?" And, and I was like, "Look, like you need to like imagine that traffic. How are you gonna respond to that, right?" And that's what you're talking about in terms of that future planning.
Yes, visualizing for sure will help, but also just writing it down.
Okay,
Writing
yeah.
what my steps are, what my tools are. So that would come under journaling, but both definitely can work hand in hand. You journal it and you also visualize it.
Yeah, so you're kind of you're obviously visualizing stroke thinking about what might happen, and then you're like proactively going to journal and say, these are the frameworks, these are the tools that I'm going to use to get through that situation. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would actually classify them as two very different techniques.
Okay.
When you visualize, you just put in your mind what you want to see happening. I want to be performing like this. You fill your mind
Mm.
with certain images of how you want to see a performance to be. If you visualize something negative, you might just attract that or train your brain to think in those patterns. Whereas in journaling, you address what's actually happening. Right? How do I feel about the situation? I feel anxious. I feel embarrassed. I feel horrible. What part of it makes you feel horrible or anxious or fearful? You write it down. You write it down so much that you kind of make peace with it. And then you say, okay, what strategies do I have in place to address it? And then you write down your strategies. And once you have your strategies, you've addressed that emotional burden, you've sort of started making your way towards peace with it, then you're at a place where you can visualize it positively.
Mm. So, so give me an example of, if you wouldn't mind, just talk me through an example. Like, could be a made up one, and then a way that someone could get through it, just so I can really nail that.
Sure, sure. So let's say an athlete has a swimming competition coming up, and they've had like 3 competitions in the past year where they've performed really poorly, and they're super anxious about this upcoming performance. Now, yes, they can visualize it, but if they're in a negative mindset, it's going to be very difficult for them to visualize it. And even if they do, their brain might not trust them. They might not have developed that trust within themselves to believe what they're visualizing. Like, okay, I see it, but I still think I'm going to fail. I'm not sure if it's going to work. So they're not strong enough yet to believe their visualization. So at that point of time, we do journaling. We do like cognitive exercise. So let's start by addressing the fear, talking about it. How do you feel about your upcoming competition? And if you have nothing to say, you might be practicing emotional avoidance, not thinking about it, which is not healthy. You want to be very honest with what you're feeling about it. If you're scared, you are. And that's only going to help you. Addressing it is only going to help you. So I'm pretty anxious about my tournament. Why? I don't know. It's not going to go well. What do you actually feel? I said, I'm not sure if I'll perform well. Why do you think you may not perform well? Because I don't think I have the skills. Why do you think you don't have the skills? So you start writing these things down, you question yourself, and you say that I haven't practiced enough. Well, what's some data that you haven't practiced enough? And then when you start rationalizing it, you really don't have that data and information to support the fact that you might not perform well. So you start looking for things. Oh, I didn't perform well the previous time. Why didn't you perform well for XYZ reason? Well, have you learned from that? Do you have the skills now? Yeah, I kind of do. Okay, so what are some reasons that you might perform well in your swimming competition? Well, I've worked on those skills. I've been training for so long. In the practice races, I kind of beat so and so. I had this timing. So you build your data, your fact sheet. You start building that trust in yourself with the facts. You get to a positive space. You've addressed that fear. Now you're ready to believe yourself. And then you go on to, okay, do you want to practice visualization? And you can see it better and it comes more naturally, seeing yourself winning the race. So that was the journaling part. That's where the counseling, the CBT, all that stuff comes in.
Yeah, I was just thinking then, I wasn't sure if it was CBT or psychotherapy or a blend, but it sort of reminds me of that. It's like going back and redressing what
Yes,
is fact, what is imagined, like
right,
what evidence do you have to support the feeling that you have?
right.
And in some
Exactly.
places you might have some evidence, but
Yes,
let's work on that, right?
for sure,
But like
for sure.
throw out everything where you don't have the evidence for.
So, and when the athletes start to see the facts for themselves, all those biases clear out. They start to feel positive, and then in that state, their visualization is much more powerful.
Yeah, I
Versus,
like
I'm not confident if their visualization will work if they have so many negative beliefs that they haven't addressed. And I say negative beliefs because they're not based on facts.
yeah. No, that's cool. All right, I've got a selfish question. As someone who is generally pretty calm, I meditate daily. I do all the, the ice baths and cold showers and all this stuff. I still struggle in and around an event. I think like my addictive personality, I think all athletes are a little bit like that, or inverted commas athletes, amateur athletes, whatever. If we're into sports in the gym, I think we like that dopamine, don't we? And those things come along for the ride. And let's say, I'll give you an example. So I had a competition, High Rocks Manchester. It's on a Saturday afternoon. I decided to get a hotel, drive down there the day before so I could relax. And when I'm like in and around the competition and afterwards, actually, everything goes out the window. Like, I know now that I should just meditate more. But when I'm like, once I get in the hotel room and kind of like, my nervous system knows, like, this is new. We've not been here before. Something's happening. And even like the discipline to just sit down and meditate, I just can't do it. What are things we can do to be able to slow us down when we're in an unfamiliar environment, hotel room, different place, city, to get into the right zone?
Right. So I'll talk about the strategies that one can adopt going up to the event. So first of all, meditation should be regular and not something that needs to specifically be done on the day or before the event because it's going to be super hard. So if it's a regular part of your routine as a habit, it's going to be more beneficial. The second thing is visualizing. If you know in advance where your tournament is going to be, what the circumstances are, research about the place, the temperature, the climate, the living conditions, so you can add that in your visualization. So there are three types of visualization: preparatory, action specific, and outcome based. So we all know the action specific one, where you're
Yeah.
visualizing the movements. We know the outcome based ones, where you're seeing yourself lifting the trophy and celebrating with your friends. But there's another one which is called preparatory based, where you visualize yourself going to the tournament, leaving your hotel, staying in your hotel, going to the arena, packing your bag, carrying your water bottle, listening to the pep talk from your coach, just getting ready. Anything from the preparation phase, from the previous night to the morning of, to just like taking a shower, whatever your routine is, and then stepping in and hearing the crowd. So this can help deal with that performance anxiety if you visualize it in advance. The third thing would be is address your anxieties beforehand through CBT, through journaling. Learn these techniques. It's easier said than done, and work your way through it. Constantly be in touch with your emotional experience. And the fourth, I would say, is have a strong pre-performance routine. That's the fourth technique that I wanted to address earlier as well, which is a mental warm-up. We all have a physical warm-up that we do before our performance, a few stretches, a few runs, but not everybody has a mental warm-up, something to help them get into the right mental zone. And that's where pre-performance routine can really help. It could be a short visualization, a particular revision of your math strategy, listening to music, some deep breathing, reading out your list of strengths to yourself. It's a combination of different behaviors and thoughts that you have that you know work for you to help you get into the right zone. Every athlete has a different routine, and we work with athletes to help them find the best one for themselves. So having that pre-performance routine, no matter which environment you're in, your brain and body knows it's time for me to perform now and helps you get ready faster. So meditation regularly, visualizing the preparatory stuff, journaling your emotions and thoughts in advance, and having a pre-performance routine. These four things will help.
Yeah, that's good. I never thought of visualizing because I've been thinking a lot about visualizing the post event like the few days after. We'll talk about that in a minute if you like. But yeah, the preparation, that's a good one. I was thinking Google Street View would be quite useful there. You know, when you go on Google Maps and you can zoom in and see the buildings and stuff, find your hotel and run that through. And I guess that's why, like in this instance, let's say we are talking about high rocks. If you've not done a high rocks before, like it's such an assault on the nervous system when you walk into this venue and there's like all these beautiful people like half naked and like pumping music. It's quite like it's like when it's kind of like going into a nightclub with like athletes.
It can be
um
very fascinating for sure.
yeah, so it's yeah, that's why like experience will help as well. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to go down. So one of them is uh post event. So the dopamine drop really hits me hard after an event, whether I've performed well or performed badly or whatever. It don't really matter. Either way, there's that. um, and I can find like the 2-3 days after doing a high rocks, I feel like I've been like drinking, or it feels that intense of a drop to me. And a lot of the people who do it feel the same as well. Have you any thoughts on mitigating that, and yeah, how to think about the days afterwards? And again, it's like that same thing where it's like, oh, get out in the sunshine, do serotonin activities, but like I think the nervous system is so fried, like it's much more likely for me, I'll sit scrolling on my phone or binge watching Netflix and eating rubbish food. And I think that's a lot of people experience that. So have you any thoughts on how to cope with that better?
Is that because your body is physically exhausted or mentally exhausted? What's the experience like after the
I
performance?
it's less. Don't get me wrong. There is a physical feeling, but it's the mental fatigue that's the worst. Um, yeah, it's just like a big come down. It feels, um, yeah, like what we was. It literally feels to me like I've been out drinking for 3 days straight. That's how it feels. Um, and this is my total bro science, but I believe it's just this: what goes up must come down with the dopamine. And just that trough that you're in the next day. I don't know whether it is possible to. I think you'll always feel it to an extent. It's like anything, isn't it? You go to, I don't know, a theme park and you go on you have a fun day. You're going to have a little lull afterwards because it's that homostasis, right? Is that the word?
Homeostasis, yeah.
Homeostasis, yes.
Yeah. Um, I get what you're saying. Like usually when there's a very high surge of dopamine, there is a tendency for it to go down, but it can vary from event to event. So I think before commenting on what the best strategies would be, it would be very helpful for me to understand what the cognitive demands are of high rocks when you're performing, so that I could suggest strategies of how to maintain baseline levels of dopamine even while you're performing so you don't experience such a big crash afterward.
Mm. So when you
Yeah.
say like cognitive demands, like yeah, cue me up a little bit more there. What do you mean? Sorry.
So since I'm not familiar with this event, like
Mm.
what happens over the course of, I'm not sure, a few hours, 1 day, 3 days, back-to-back events?
It's literally between 70 and 100 minutes, depending on how quick you are.
Okay.
Um, but I think I'll often like joke slash actually believe I'll say like I would love it if I could just come out of like a monastery and just go straight into the event and race. But it's the build up. I think it's like, and we've got like everyone in the gym is on the WhatsApp group because there's like this amazing community. Oh, and everyone's racing at different times, so it's all day. So it's all
Okay.
day long. Oh, Kaylee's racing at 9 o'clock, and then oh, what time's Jason on? Oh, he's on at 12, and it's like, and then everyone's putting videos in the group and like, oh, look, I got a new time, new PB, and it's like, whoa. You can feel that energy now, can't you? It's quite intense. As I'm saying it now, I feel like a part of the answer is actually the switching off from some of the devices.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say a lot of the work would have to be done in the preparatory side of things that are, supercharging the dopamine beyond the level it's required. So the level of optimal performance of any physiological neurotransmitter, such as dopamine, would be at a certain level. But maybe like those messages which add to social comparison or distraction or any other extra cognitive load that is causing that requirement of a higher level of dopamine and pushing it up way higher than what might be required, which is causing that crash.
Mm. Yeah, like because in some ways, like, and this is modern day life. Everything is one WhatsApp groups, and this is like our little community, and so much of it goes through the WhatsApp group, and it's actually beautiful because you've got your gym mates there. We're all supporting each other, cheering each other on. Okay, yeah, there is some social comparison probably going on. There is some competitiveness. Certainly the guy, I'll be looking at the guys' times, like what did they get? Um, so yeah, I think maybe stepping out of that, maybe being more disciplined with saying, I'm actually not going to engage. Best of luck, but I'm going to stay out of the group.
Yeah.
Maybe until the day after the event, maybe, or I don't know. Getting that balance right to be still participating and supporting your teammates, because that's how we
Understood.
kind of see each other. We're like teammates because we're all training at the same gym and we have our own races.
Understood. Yeah. And I would say it's similar to other sports as well, now that I can make a few parallels. For example, in the sport of tennis, before a match, an athlete can either engage with their environment in a negative way or can disengage from all the negative triggers and stimuli in their environment. So if you know that there are going to be people around you who are constantly asking, oh, who are you up against? Are you prepared? How are you feeling? And are kind of going to psych you out or make you feel nervous. You know that those are triggers you must avoid to stay in your right mindset. Or if, there's certain messages like keeping your phone off, listening to the right kind of music. So that's the whole part of that pre-performance routine. What mindset are you getting yourself into before you perform? Are you focused? Are you calm? Are you relaxed? Are you happy?
Mm,
That will determine your post-performance dopamine levels and how badly they crash if they're not well balanced in advance.
yeah, yeah. The more you're saying it now, I feel like it's just, it, yeah, disengage, be as calm as possible going into the event. Because as well, like, even like if I use this example of stepping out of the temple straight into the event, I'm in the warm up area for like 60 minutes, anyways, and there's plenty of time to get the cortisol and dopamine, fired up and the adrenaline, right? In a situation like that, I don't see myself being too chilled out for that kind of thing. Um,
Able to switch off
yeah, yeah,
or switch everything else.
yeah. I'm going to practice this in October. I'll let you know how I get on. I'll send you a letter. I won't be on my phone.
Take some. time for me to get and read.
um, listen, this has been so interesting, and we don't have much time today, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. But like, if you'd be up for it, we could maybe do another one in the future. Um, yeah, as you can tell, I'm just endlessly fascinated by all these sorts of things, and you've really helped give me some good tools to go ahead with, and I'm sure my audience will be grateful as well. Before we wrap things up, where would you like me to direct people to check out your stuff? Chance for a little plug of your work.
People can check out my website, which is just my name, kunashni.com, for all things about sports psychology or mental health in general. You could also check out my Instagram handle, Kunashni_psychologist. And I'm sure I can send the details across, or you could put them up on the screen. And yeah, I'd be happy to connect and help as much as I can.
Amazing. That's a good domain name you got there. Kunashni.com. Yeah, I don't think jason.com is available anymore.
The perks of having a very niche name.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful name, by the way. Thank you so much. I will. Yeah, I'll be in touch, and let's stay connected. Have a good day.